Hello dear Patreons, welcome to October. This is a very quick video just to talk about what's coming in the next 3 or 4 weeks and to talk about what we've been up to as well. So it's a bit disappointing, we are already into winter here. Feels like in the UK the days are getting a lot shorter and the garden has already decided that, you know what, it's had enough, it's going to do what it needs to do to get ready for autumn. So the pumpkins are nearly ready, all of the trees like the Acer and Virginia Creeper and everything is turning red. So I guess that's summer over. I think I blinked and missed it. But anyway, let's talk about what's going to happen in the next month. So we're going to have a look at the Evey 100 goggles. Lots of people have already reviewed this thing. They perform exactly as you'd expect from a set of goggles costing 100 to 120 quid. They're not fantastic, but they are a valiant attempt from Eachine to try and break into that lower end of the market. Let's hope that more people follow and aren't as ambitious with the optics that actually produce a much more usable set of goggles. We'll be carrying on with the Eagle Tree and Vector series over the next month. Both of those are probably going to end up running into November. There's just so much stuff to cover and I'm trying to pace it out as well. The Eagle Tree Vector in particular continues to impress me. I've not normally been a big fan of open source systems, but it's working really well indeed. The Pixhawk as well performs exactly as you'd expect. It's a Pixhawk. Ardu Plane 3.8 had a couple of updates, so it's getting a little bit better too. But the testing and flying that I'll be doing here is great. We've done a couple more videos showing how to set that up, and I've also done one showing how to set a 3DR radio, but also to do something with a really cute bit of technology that gives you all of the flight information on the screen of your radio. We'll be looking at a few more smaller quadcopters, continuing to try and find a really nice set for under 250 grams. Some of those are going to be the really small 80-90 millimeter quads that are using very small compact motors, multi-bladed props that aren't particularly great. They'll give you 4 or 5 minutes of flight time tops, but they can be an awful lot of fun. There's some other quads that we'll be looking at too. The awesome F100 I've been particularly impressed with. Again, that's kind of one of those, I think it's a 100 millimeter quad. I guess that kind of makes sense because of the name, but the way it flies and the way the camera performs is actually very good indeed. In addition to that, we'll also be starting a series on Crossfire. Team Black Sheep have been in touch. There's quite a lot of questions about that, and I don't know if you saw, I tweeted a request for questions a couple of days ago. Now that is a very impressive long-range system. It's one of lots of long-range systems that are out there at the moment, but there are a couple of challenges with it, particularly around the X7S radio and the new versions that have come out. The CRSF protocol that it uses is at the moment something that TBS have developed but will become an open standard, and that allows you to do some pretty cool stuff remotely with things like Betaflight. Betaflight 3.2 release candidate 5 has got some improvements in it for bidirectionality with that protocol, and in 3.3 it'll let us do some really cool stuff. So there's 2 or 3 videos that we'll do for that hopefully will demystify and debunk that a little bit too. Now I've looked at all the stuff that's kind of locked and loaded, ready to go. And don't forget, you can have a look at all of those videos by having a mooch around in the playlist. Most of the things tend to be on the channel 2 weeks before they go up. I like to have a couple of weeks of videos ready to go so that if I get pulled off into my day job, then the number of videos don't slow down. So other things I'm looking at, we are also going to look at a couple more quads, smaller quads that I've got to do. One is called the Blue Butterfly and the other one is another awesome quad, a smaller version of the F100. We'll see what that's like. Also be starting the Bolt Works build. Now Bolt Works frame is really impressive and it's taken me ages to try and figure out what flight controller to use. The reason for that is that the Bolt system itself comes with an 8-volt regulator, and using a little Polulu you can put 5 volts on there as well. So what flight controller do you use? Well, I'm going to be looking at the new FrSky flight controllers over the next couple of weeks as well. FrSky have just brought out a complete new range with integral XSR receivers. And the flight controllers look pretty good, but unfortunately they haven't exposed a lot of additional UARTs on those flight controllers to connect other things to. So for example, if you wanted to use it with something like an external video transmitter that you could configure through the Betaflight on-screen display, You can't on the majority of those new boards from FR Sky. I fed that back. I'll do the review. You'll see the detail. So it's either one of those boards, because it saves me having to have a separate receiver on that really small frame, or do I go for the setup that's worked so well in that Coppice One quad? That was actually using the F4 flight controller from Holybro, and it was using the Atlatl FPV video transmitter, and that Coppice One quad is probably one of the best ready to fly quads I've ever tried. So I'm tempted to maybe just nick all those ideas and lift and shift that entire thing into the new frame. I've also got some race flight boards here as well. And you know what, after all the problems with the race flight boards, I don't think I'm ever going to install that in something else. So that's been one of the reasons that that has been delayed. I've been trying to get a really good set of electronics to put inside, but I've had a couple of people get in touch and give me some ideas. So I'll be starting that series too. It'll only be probably 2 or 3 videos. It's not a particularly complex build. We'll also be looking at something called a Devo radio. That's a radio that hopefully is going to perform the same functionality as that 4-in-1 module that we popped in the back of a QX7. It's a little bit smaller physically, unsurprisingly, than a normal radio, but it's quite cheap and cheerful way if you want something that's going to feel a little bit more realistic to fly those little indoor quads in the winter months if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. It's an option rather than trying to shoehorn a 4-in-1 quad into a radio, or if you have a radio that doesn't have that JR style bay at the back. Couple more things coming as well. We have some more stuff from ISDT. Continue to be impressed with their chargers. They've released a discharging unit. I tend to find that I take more batteries to the field that I end up flying. That's usually, if I kind of confess, because I've crashed everything, but it does mean that I'm bringing batteries back with a full charge, and it's quite laborious to set them all back down to a storage charge. So this is a little unit that you can plug into and will discharge the batteries relatively quickly, and it has its own kind of heat sink and things inside, an additional fan. So I'll be taking a look at that stuff too. If you have anything that you would like me to have a look at, as Patreons you have the top level of access to me and the channel. Do let me know. A couple of you have already been in touch and asked support questions, which you are all entitled to do by being a Patreon. So do make sure, if you're struggling, don't sit there scratching your head, just pop me a message. Do it through the Patreon system, and then I'll respond to you, and then if we need to, we can set up a Skype chat or whatever it is you need to get sorted. And finally, a very big thank you to all of you that have taken the time to become a Patreon and support me and the channel and the work we do here. I couldn't do what I do without the support that you provide. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, particularly at the moment when cash can be a little bit tough to come by. Last thing I'll mention is, don't forget, if you're a Patreon of more than $5 and you haven't yet received a set of Painless 360 stickers, pop me a note and I'll get some out to you. So thanks again for taking the time to watch the video. Hopefully that's been interesting to see what's going on. Don't forget to give me your thoughts, comments and feedback, and have a wonderful October and happy flying.